Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dr. Sophia ObGyn Podcast. I'm an ObGyn practicing for over 15 years in my native New York City, and I love to help women learn about their bodies, empower them, and embrace themselves. On this podcast, we talk openly and with heart about all things affecting women, from pregnancy, menopause, periods, sexual health, fertility, and so much more. Disclaimer: this is general medical information based on my professional opinion and experience. For specific medical advice, please refer to your physician. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Sophia ObGyn Podcast. Today, we will be speaking about women and pregnancy and when is the best time?
Is there a best time?
Is there a best time? All I know is I want to have a baby. Okay, not me personally, not me, Dr. Sophia. I'm talking about my patients.
That's what they tell you.
Who come in through the door and say, I want to have a baby. And they are at all ages, at all walks of life, at all stages of life. And I figured we'd talk about it. So without further ado, I have my friend and co-host, Touseef Mirza, right here with me.
Hi, everybody. So as usual, me and Dr. Sophia, we talk about a lot of things all the time since we're such good friends. And she was telling me how some of her patients come to see her and they just decide that they want to have a baby. And whether that's when they're in their 20s or whether that is in their 30s. And we started to think about that we don't talk as much about like what is really the right time to have a baby when you're just talking about more in terms of our bodies. So we wanted to just open up that conversation because we feel that's something that not everybody talks about.
I will say that there's a lot of things that people don't talk about when it comes to just pregnancy in general. Like the amount of times that I have to talk to a woman and ask, are you considering a family? Are you considering pregnancy? How do you feel about your future fertility? And that woman is in her mid-30s. And she's like, wow, you're the first person who's ever asked me that. And I said, well, life is not all about whether or not you want birth control. Mm-hmm. What about starting a family?
And not because you're telling her she should.
No, it's just a matter of I want to know, well, do you even want to? So that way we can start to have the conversation about how does that happen for you? What does that look like? What are your plans? What time? How does that play into your life? Because at the end of the day, you know, when they say you have a quote unquote biological clock, that thing is real.
So it's not because you're trying to get in their business and try to figure out what they want, but you're really looking at it from a doctor's perspective and the implications of a woman who would want to be pregnant and she's like 35 or 36. So let's just pull back a little bit. So when we say biological clock, I think that's something we just use all the time haphazardly. But what does that really mean?
It's so funny because I'm telling you, the concept of the biological clock, it's like some women have heard of it and some women haven't. But when they come into my office and I actually say, yeah, no, that's real. At the end of the day, our bodies were meant to have babies in our 20s and early 30s. Like that is like considered the optimal time. Okay. And for a lot of reasons, that's when our fertility is the highest. That's when we have the best quality of our eggs. And over time, that egg quality diminishes until we get to the point of what we call menopause, when we have no more eggs, where our fertility really comes to a halt.
So when we say egg quality, what does that mean exactly in terms of egg quality?
I want good eggs.
Good eggs, healthy eggs.
Healthy eggs. Eggs that are going to withstand any kind of issues, let's just say.
Any stress.
Any kind of stressors and things like that. And The reality is that as women, we are born with a finite number of eggs. And every time, once we hit puberty, those eggs, we are losing them by the thousands.
Because the thing is, you talked about egg quality. I think a lot of people talk about egg quantity, right? Which is you're talking about too. So this is why I'm
Well, it's good that you mention it actually, because we're talking about both. And both your quality and quantity of eggs are highest when you are younger. And as we age, we lose both quantity of eggs as well as high quality eggs. And so when we think of it from that perspective, that's why a pregnancy in your 20s is quote unquote ideal. Now, by no way, shape, or form am I saying that women have to have babies in their 20s. We are rock stars. We can do it anytime. Okay. But it has to be with us knowing that it's a lot easier to do when we're in our 20s. And yes, it starts to become a little bit more difficult or not as easy to even get pregnant as we age. Let's take for our cycles, for example, getting our periods. Our cycle is what kind of indicates to us that we are quote unquote ovulating. So for the most part, a woman who has a regular cycle where she's getting her period, let's say somewhere between 28 and 30 days, every month she sees Aunt Flo, whatever you want to call her, my little red friend.
or just straight up period.
Or just straight up period.
yes.
Anywho, your period comes and you ovulated that month. If you're in your 20s, you have a 20 to 25% chance of getting pregnant in that cycle. But by contrast, if you are in your 40s, let's just say you're 40, that just dropped significantly from a 25% chance of getting pregnant if you're 22 to a 5% chance of getting pregnant if you are 40.
So 20% drop.
Okay. And when we think about the fact that a 22-year-old and a 42-year-old could still be having a period, totally normal. Like it's coming every month. All right. But that 40-year-old, though she's ovulating, unfortunately, her egg quantity and quality are not the same.
For her to have a fertile.
For her to conceive, to fertilize, for that egg to be fertilized and for that to then develop into a embryo.
So I think one thing that you and I were talking about, and we really want to be clear in this podcast, is that by no means we're saying that therefore every woman should have a baby and or should be having the baby at 20. What we're saying is that people should have this information and understand that if babies are really important for them, then they need to understand
how their bodies are functioning.
Yeah.
And the reason why we even started to have this conversation is because we were having the conversation of patients who come to me. And for me, at 30 years old, I see a patient and on her chart, it says she's never been pregnant ever. It causes me to kind of get in her business. I want to know, well, is it because you don't want children, which is totally okay.
So let's just go back for a second. When you see she's 30 and then it just opens up all your questioning, why is that?
Because our bodies are changing, like just think about it like every decade, 20, 30, 40, and beyond. Okay. But if we're talking about it just in terms of our reproductive lives, the reality is the reality. And so I want to know so that I can help guide that woman in terms of real facts.
And give her all the information she needs.
Give her the information that she needs. Let it be something that becomes not necessarily top of mind, but certainly, I didn't think about it. I didn't think about when I may want children. I didn't, or if I even want them, or no, I'm clear. I don't want them. I'm just going through life, living out my career, living out my other dreams. And that's what's important to me. And I'm glad you mentioned it, but no, it's not important to me.
If they say though, yes, it's important to me, but I don't want them right now.
Again, I love that, because then that's an opportunity to say, okay, great. I want you to get that master's degree. I want you to, be the powerhouse at your job. I want you to be the support person at home, or whatever it is that you are deciding to do. And let's talk about maybe egg freezing. If you happen to have a partner and you'd like perhaps to delay starting your family, well, then let's talk about freezing some embryos. So that way, if you want to think about a pregnancy or starting your family, you are now 32 years old and you're like, I have other things to do. I'll think about that when I'm 37. At 37, I want you to go and have fun. I want you to go and try having a baby the old natural way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But at least if there's a problem, if there is any kind of issue, guess what? You now have saved those 32-year-old eggs, or that 32-year-old embryo that you created, and can now use that should you need to.
Because you might have more difficulty
Because
at age 37, 38.
you may have more difficulty conceiving at age 37, 38. And moreover, for some women, they may not even have a partner. They may not even, they know they want children, but they're not, like, having a boyfriend or being married or having a husband is not the most important thing in their, in their life at that time. And so I just want to be able to empower women with the thought that, hey, I can really sit in my idea of wanting to be a mother, of wanting to become a mother, however way that looks. And here are a couple of things I can put in place to help myself if that is not what I'm doing at, let's say, 27, right? If at 27, I am not pregnant, I'm not trying to get pregnant, it's okay. I can think about it at 37, and I now have 30-year-old either, saved eggs, or, like I said, embryos, or, you could even have none of that, but at least just the knowledge.
To have it so you can chill out.
So that you can either pump the brakes
Right.
or speed it up.
Right. Because there is a lot of stress with women, the ones who really want to have kids, and the clock is ticking. So at least you're relieving some level of stress by realizing that you have that as a backup.
Right. That's even an option. Like,
Yeah.
most women don't even know, like, that's a thing. I had the quote unquote maternal instinct, and I was very young. I was about 19. And I remember going to my mom and being like, oh, I don't know. I feel like I want a baby. My mother looked at me like, what? Girl, you better go to school. But it was obvious for me at a very young age that I knew I wanted to become a mother.
So just on the flip side, when I was 17, went to see my poor mother and told her, Mom, I'm never going to have kids. That's what I said. So we're completely at opposite ends.
But look at how young we were.
Yeah.
And we were pretty clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I still don't have kids. And I have an amazing niece, and I'm an awesome aunt. And that's the way I want it.
And I think that that's fantastic, because you are clear. You're clear
Yeah.
about exactly who you wanted to be in your womanhood.
Yeah.
Right? Becoming a mother doesn't make you a woman.
No.
But if you want to be a mother, be a mother. And it was something that I knew that I wanted. But I also knew I wanted to become a doctor. And I find that I like that I am both. And you don't have to be one or the other. You don't have to pick your career over your family life. Or, so many times, unfortunately, women think they can only do one thing, or they should only do one thing, or they can't have it both ways. And you can have exactly what you want. It may not all come at the same time, but you can have exactly what you want. And it's just having the information to know how to do it.
It's interesting having this conversation because women, since the past like 100 years or 50 years, we've become more independent, more in control of our lives, which is obviously how we wanted it to be. And so that gave us the opportunity to do whatever we want with our lives in terms of having a career or having a family or having both or being a nomad, like whatever we want to do.
Yeah.
And
Travel the world.
Exactly. And that is fabulous. So we are all, God knows, all about that. And at the same time, by having these types of liberties, I think we have to come to an understanding also of the propensity of how our bodies were designed, and think that, we can do whatever we want with our minds and all that stuff, but our bodies are our bodies.
That's so true.
And so our bodies were actually still designed to give birth in terms of with the lowest risk.
Yeah, in your 20s.
And that's
in your 20s.
Yes,
There's no question about that.
Because when you look at potential issues that can come about, right, like preeclampsia.
No, you're 100% correct. Right. At the end of the day, women who have pregnancies and deliveries later on in life, that does come with the complications that can arise. Mm-hmm. Those complications, and these are complications that can happen at any age and with any pregnancy, but the risks are higher when you're a little bit older. I hate even saying that when you're a little bit older because, I look at myself and I'm like, if I wanted another baby. No, I'm kidding. But in the sense that I don't want another child at this age. However, for so many women in their 40s who are feeling so incredibly vital, living a life that is beyond their wildest dreams, and having to be considered, quote unquote, a geriatric pregnancy is so frustrating, or knowing that, it's just going to be so much harder, but it's still the reality. Mm-hmm. The increased risk of preeclampsia, as you mentioned just now, preeclampsia being a blood pressure issue in pregnancy that can lead to many, many hard and problematic, complications, gestational diabetes occurring in pregnancy, the risk of genetic complications with the fetus or the baby, having things like Down syndrome, stillbirth as as being something that happens higher in terms of number when you are older, miscarriage. Mm-hmm. So it's not that you can't get pregnant, it's that you can't stay pregnant. There's just so many more things that happen more frequently as we get older trying to have a baby as opposed to when we're younger.
So, like, in summary, like the different areas where you have increased risk of issues is from fertility. So that's even, before you're pregnant. And then actually all the other issues in terms of gestational diabetes and high blood pressure.
The actual pregnancy
itself. And then
there's
when
to
you're
top it off, there's a delivery.
And that could be a stillbirth. So there's increased risk throughout that journey.
Throughout the journey when we're a little bit older. And when I say a little bit older, I'm talking about like 35, 36, 37 years old. And for so many women, they're looking at it as, I am in my prime. I have done all these things. I feel so successful. I am financially stable. I
feel like I'm 22. So why not?
My body still feels like I'm 25. So now I've met the man of my dreams. We've accomplished so many things together. And I am ready to have a baby. Right. And they walk into my office and that's exactly what they say. And then I say, we're ready to have a baby. And I'm like, okay, great. Have you been having, unprotected sex? And are you having a regular period? And they said, yeah, we've been planning and trying for a baby for the last 6 months. And I say, okay, so at this time, if you've been trying for 6 months and bearing all things normal, meaning you're the woman's normal, her partner is normal, and they've been trying for 6 months, it then leads me down the path of having to tell them, okay, let's start thinking about if are any issues, whether that's hormonal issues, whether that's tubal issues, like problems like actually anatomically, either with the uterus or her tubes.
Because if they have been trying for 6 months with unprotected sex, then as a doctor, you think that there might be something else here at play, that there might be some
There's
issues.
a possibility, and I don't want to wait till 2 years has gone by. So here we are, we have a 35-year-old woman who tells me, okay, it's been 6 months. I've been doing all the things. I'm even, I'm calculating when I'm ovulating, I'm having sex at the right time, etc. And nothing seems to be happening. That's when I'm like, okay, let's start the investigation to make sure that you don't have any reason why it's not happening. And that could be for another 2-3 months of trying to figure out if there are any reasons why it's not happening.
But when they come and see you and they say this, initially they don't really think it's a big problem, right? They just think, like, we're just trying and it's going to happen. Or when they tell you this, are they already a little either frustrated or worried?
Some are worried. Others are just like, okay, here's what's been going on. What are your thoughts? Like, should I be doing something different? Is there a supplement I need to be taking? Do I need to start prenatal vitamins? Do I need to change something about my diet or exercise? Do I need to sit on my head?
Anything.
What do I need to do? What do I need to do? And it is a little different if I have a woman who has a regular period at 25 with very regular cycles who says, Dr. Lubin, I've been with my, significant other for a year and we haven't really been using condoms. I haven't ever had a pregnancy scare. And I say, okay, are you trying to get pregnant? Well, if it happens, I'd be happy. Okay. Well,
you're not looking every day like this is the day I need to.
Exactly. And so I say, okay, well, here are some steps. Here are some things that you can do to help yourself if this is what you want, etc. But the level of concern is just not going to be the same until she tells me I'm 25. I've been actively trying for pregnancy for more than a year. But a woman who's 35, 36, I may say, okay, you've been actively trying for 6 months. Once she tells me it's been a year, I'm already like, okay, let's start the investigation. And even at 6 months, I'm like, let's start the investigation as to if there could be a potential reason why it's not happening.
One of the things that when we were having this conversation that came to my mind is like, where did I learn or where was I given the information that you could not easily get pregnant, but get pregnant in your 30s? Like in my mind, it was more like when you're literally at the end of 30s or like beginning, like between 40, 45, then it gets difficult. But that in your 30s, it's still not as easy maybe in your 20s, but it's still fine. And I started to think, and I said to myself, I think this is like all different, like Hollywood movies. In Hollywood movies, I feel that a lot of times you have these characters and somebody's going to say, oh, you have time, you're only 31, you have like 10 years ahead of you, you're fine. And we've heard that a lot.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the reality is that we get so much misinformation just from not just social media, but media in general.
And Hollywood movies,
they portray women, whether they are a little bit older or what have you, or they portray this idea that women, we can just have a baby anytime. And that's just, unfortunately, not the case.
Right. Where am I getting this information? Like, where am I getting this information? And not to say I get my information from Hollywood, but it's been coming at us for so long that it just becomes a default. And I'm sure that there's other women like that. And I'm a pretty, like I research things and everything like that. But after talking to you and just like thinking about it, I'm just like, wow, like I didn't want kids, so it didn't affect me. But, for other women that want kids, but that don't have that information straight, that's pretty serious.
It's totally serious. It's so serious because if at the very first time you are deciding, okay, I am so excited, I am ready to have a baby, and you're 39, and it's the first time you're hearing it might be harder for you to get pregnant. That's a huge blow.
And you can't go back in time. Like, that's it.
And there is no going back in time, unfortunately. Your eggs, your ovaries are exactly who they are at 39. Mm-hmm. Your eggs are what they are at 39. And so it's hard. It's a hard conversation to have if you've never heard it before. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I try to mention it at any stage. But for sure, if I have a patient, we're developing a relationship, and I see that she's either never been pregnant or she's had a pregnancy and it was many years ago, I ask people, I get in their business. I want to know, is this something that you are considering, thinking about? Have you thought about it? Is it something that's important to you? And this is where we take it from there. We have to be thinking about it for ourselves. What exactly do we want? What is going to work for us?
I mean, I think also for some people, they don't know what they want, and that might be developed later on in life, but it's still good information to know, no matter what.
So I fully agree with you with that, because sometimes it's just that little trigger of, what do I want? Mm-hmm. Because otherwise we're kind of like going through life and you're like, la-di-da, like there's so many other things, interests and adventures that we want to go on that may not be top of mind, but can become top of mind if someone is reminding you, hey, I see you've gone, scuba diving, and you went to theater school in London, and you jumped out of a plane in Japan. Just a quick question. We're 33. I was just curious. Were you thinking about having a family? And if you're not, that's great. But if you are, I just want to make sure that you've thought about, these three things. When would you like to have a baby? How would you like to have a baby? And the how is because some people, I want to have a baby, but I don't want to have my own baby. I want to become a mother, but it doesn't have to be biologically,
Like adoption.
Or if not adoption, then things like surrogacy. Women have options, but they don't know they have options.
So we talked a lot from a perspective of women that are in their 30s. So let's do the flip side. So for women that are in their 20s, so can you give us an example of when we say that the 20s is really a good time to have a baby? Like, how does that look like for a patient?
Oh my gosh. For me, when I see a 24-year-old come into my office and she's excited and she's pregnant, and I am like, yes, all right. Because for the most part, their bodies are meant to have babies at that time. What does that mean? Usually it's a beautiful, seamless pregnancy. They come in, especially if they're coming in for their visits, they're taking their vitamins, they're eating well, we're having conversations. A 20-year-old's body has the energy, the metabolism, the strength, the eggs, right? In terms of just getting pregnant, and just a higher chance of going through the pregnancy uncomplicated. It's not the same thought process of so many things like, could there be an increased chance of diabetes, preeclampsia, Granted, all those things are always possible. It depends on your family history. It depends on your own like health status. But let's just take a nice, healthy 24-year-old who comes to all their visits, does all the right things, comes for a birth. It's supposed to be a beautiful process.
So even like the labor, it's easier for them.
Even the labor is easier for them. It's
How?
like I just had one. I literally just had a girl I delivered this morning, 21 years old, completely pushed the baby out, like got to fully dilated, had all her energy. She had an epidural. She went through the process like it was nothing. I mean, it was like, oh, you could have 10 babies at that rate. You know what I'm saying? Like,
because it was just an easy process. Easier process.
It was an easier process. It was an easier process. Now, granted, this young girl was in great shape. She was in good health. It was an easier process for her body to go through, but the majority of them look like that.
Right, because if you're talking about a 24-year-old, 21-year-old, 24-year-old that is in good health, delivering, and then you look at a woman who's like 36, 37, and she's in good health and delivering, the process is still easier for a 24-year-old.
Yes, let's just say first-time mom, both sides, 24-year-old, 37-year-old. They're both first-time moms. Let's just say they're both in excellent health. Okay. I find, this is just anecdotally, people please understand, this is just me and my experience.
Yeah. For over 15 years.
I still find that it's easier for the 24-year-old than the 37-year-old. I still find that overall, the 24-year-old goes through the process, is not a diabetic, does not have hypertension. And I'm clearly just talking about your average woman. That even includes our young Black women. You have to be getting good care. And you have to be taking care of yourself as well. So going into your pregnancy as healthy as possible, getting good medical care makes all the difference. And that's across the board.
Exactly.
It does. That goes for every pregnancy,
right.
Every mama, every woman who is going through the birth process. But at the end of the day, I mean, the girl I delivered today, she went according to the normal, what we call labor curve. Like every few hours, she was making change. She was making progress. And if I take the same situation, maybe a couple of weeks ago where I delivered someone who was like 39, it just wasn't as easy.
Mm. And this goes back to the stats that we were saying, that younger mothers or mothers-to-be have higher fertility, have less complications during their pregnancy, and also have less stillbirths, which is, the flip side of women in their late 30s, early 40s. And this basically just demonstrates that the body is just designed to deliver babies, to be pregnant, to deliver babies optimally more during the time in your 20s. And that's not, we didn't decide that. That's just what evolution did.
That's just evolution.
That has nothing
that's
to
our
do.
bodies.
Yeah. And I just want to say this. I'm 53. I have white hair. This is not about ageism, because I know we talk a lot about ageism and a woman can do everything she wants at any age she wants. We have the mind, the soul, the emotion, the strength, the resilience, all of it. We're just saying that the body biologically is the body in terms of how it was designed. And we also have to respect that. And we also have to recognize that. And that is also to our benefit to recognize, to know ourselves more from the inside out.
The more we know ourselves, the more we talk about what we in our bodies actually want, the better decisions we can make, the more prepared we can be, and the better and more beautiful the journey. So the goal here is simply to give the information, understanding that it's real. Mm-hmm. We have a clock and it's ticking. It's just a matter of knowing how you want to go against that clock. How are you moving with that clock?
And the great news is we do have options, like you were
We
saying.
absolutely have options. Thank God for modern medicine and technology and all the things that are available to us. And also, let me be clear, the importance of just being healthy and how you help your own self. So by all means, this is not to discourage any woman who's in her 30s
Right.
from knowing that her body is functioning in a really great way, that she can have a baby. She should have a baby. We want you to just think about it.
And know all the information.
And just know the information. Like, I don't want women for the first time, it's when they're hearing, after they've been trying for 2 years to have a baby and they're now 39 or 41 or even 35. And they're just now getting the information. Oh, maybe you should have tried that before, or that it may actually be a little bit more difficult. Let's see, let's check and see where you are in terms of your fertility.
Right. So, if you're in your 20s and you're hearing this, I think it's good for you to know that in the back of your mind so that you're more aware of this as you're deciding what you want out of your life from that perspective. And I think in terms of, if you're in your 30s, is to think about it even more, but also if you're having difficulty, to recognize that this is not about you.
No.
This is biology. So give yourself that grace.
Amen.
Right? To recognize it's not I'm doing something wrong. My body is just like, what about 10 years before? Like, that's where I was all like guns blazing, but that's just where we are at right now, And so to recognize that and not to put like the weight of that level of stress and guilt of like, what's wrong with me? Nothing's
absolutely.
wrong. Nothing's wrong with you.
This is definitely not a guilt trip. This is instead an empowerment session of, okay, let me think about this. What do I want my life to look like? And where do I want to be in terms of my sense of reproduction, my sense of fertility, and who I am as a woman, and where I want to be in my womanhood? Is becoming a mother a part of it? And if it isn't, that's totally fine. Just knowing that either I have a little bit more time, I'm ready to do this now. What does it look like for me? And that you absolutely have options. I just want women to walk into it armed with information. I don't want it to be that it's the first time they're hearing it may become a little tougher for you is when they're 41 or when they are thinking about a pregnancy and they've missed their periods now for 3 or 4 months. And they're like, oh, Dr. Lubin, I don't know what's going on. I realized that my periods have been missing, have been, skipping, but, my husband and I are trying to have a baby. And it's the first time I have to describe the concept of being perimenopausal even. One of the major concerns in perimenopause is fertility, or what we call subfertility, or the fact that, your fertility goes down so dramatically after the age of 40.
Which can start earlier than 40 also.
Of course, because of perimenopause can start much earlier than the age of 40. So for any woman who's listening, the goal is for a woman in her 20s to know and think about what she may want for her future. Certainly a woman who's in her early 30s. And if you don't know, that it's okay, but that you at least know there really is a clock.
And then for those of you who are later, like in your late 30s or even early 40s, and you're listening to this and you're going, oh my God, I should have been like, figuring this out before and all that. I mean, you can't turn back time. Well, now you have that information. And number 2 is to recognize it's not about you. It's about how your body was designed. And we hope that by sharing this, it just brings a little bit more
Clarity,
clarity.
understanding, comfort to your situation, knowledge so that you can go and ask more questions with your provider, and you still have options. As always, we are here to help you embrace your body and embrace yourself. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Touseef.
Thank you. Embrace your body in your teens, in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s,
In your 50s, in your 60s, in your 70s. Yes.
all the way
all
through.
the way
And 80s,
through.
90s, because we
All the way
cannot forget Miss Jane
through.
Fonda, who's in her 80s. So yes.
All the way through.
Yes.
Yes. Until next time. See you later.
Bye.
Bye. This is general medical information based on my professional opinion and experience. For specific medical advice, please refer to your physician. Until next time, embrace your body, embrace yourself.